it was snowing last night and they were expecting, well, 12 inches.
Yeah,
Wow.
I heard north of here, it's measured in feet, not
Yeah.
inches,
Yeah.
you know, and we've got,
2 feet in Minneapolis, I guess.
I'll talk to
Yeah,
my-
that's what they're saying, Minneapolis, 1.5 to 2 feet.
Yeah, I've got Minneapolis kids, so I'll hear from them.
Well, should begin with the word of prayer.
Lord,
Lord
Lord
God,
God,
our reigns,
the struggle that good and evil rage rages within and around us. And the devil and all the forces that either divide, tempt us with empty promises. Keep us steadfast in your word, and when we fall, raise us again and restore us through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
oh, appropriate. My mom had a bad fall,
Mm,
was in intensive care over the weekend.
mm.
Who did?
My mom,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Oh,
she
shoot.
fell Saturday, morning. They checked her at 4:30 bed check. And when she didn't come out for breakfast at 8:30, they found her on the floor.
Where is she in a nursing home or?
She's in a nursing home, right now she's a Methodist.
Okay,
So
oh,
she had a
shoot.
subdural hematoma and she broke her arm.
Ah.
So, and she bruises easy.
Darn.
I'll show you a picture of it, but so falling and being steadfast and building us back, I'm like, that's fine.
Hmm.
Older people just fall. You know, I don't know why.
Oh, dear.
Their balance.
Oh, my gosh.
And then she's gotten worse.
Mm.
There's a big bruise here, a bruise on her chest, both of her knees. So what we think is she got up to go. She got up to go to the bathroom or got up to get up. Now she got to go to the bathroom because she had the blood, this bruise had gotten over here already. So she'd laid there for several hours. So we think she got up, fell, hit the door, jam, hit it here, broke the bone, and then dropped to her knees. That's why she, then
She's
laid
at
there.
Exarban, right?
Exarban.
Mhm.
They're good. They're doing it
Yeah,
after action report review of what their, all
Oh.
their policies and
Uh-huh.
everything. So
so they have an early morning check of these people.
obviously a bed check,
Bed check, yeah.
throughout the night. So,
Hmm.
but she'd been okay at 4:30 and when she didn't come out at 8:30, so.
By the way, Shelley's back in the hospital.
Mm.
She had the squad take her in Monday night. And she has infection in her right kidney.
Mm.
So when we fall, raise us again and restore us.
Wow.
That's what I've been praying for.
That's not, yeah. Up front.
The hard part's the first 2 nights I slept there in the chair.
Mm.
So Monday night was a good night. I got to sleep on bed.
So who would like to read Genesis?
Genesis 2:15 through 17, 3:1 through 7. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, you may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of that, you shall die. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God say you shall not eat from any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we mean eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it, or you shall die. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took its fruit and ate. And she also gave some of it to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. when the eyes of both were open, they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. Okay.
Well, the serpent really didn't lie when he said they'd be like God, knowing good and evil, because before that time, everything was good. There was no evil.
And that, you know. And I think, you know, it is, that you will be like God. It's not just a matter of knowing good and evil. I think it is also a matter of knowing the pain, the pathos, or whatever you want to call it, that that evil brings. I think there was obviously was good and evil in the universe, you know, before the fall. Otherwise, why would God need to know the difference? But when we know, what is it, you know, what does it do for us?
I'm kind of curious why God would say, don't eat of the fruit.
Yeah.
You would think that we should know good and evil. You would think that we should have knowledge and not walk around with our head in the cloud. That we should be able to choose between what's right and what's wrong, and good and evil. And we should know that the devil is there so that we're not tempted, or to turn away from the wrong.
Yeah, I was thinking like, because apparently the tree also looked good, right? The fruit, it says looked, you know, it was a delight to the eyes. And like, just like God, if you didn't want them to eat it, why did you put it there?
I think I never thought about the fact that even in the Garden of Eden, there was temptation, because we're all filled with temptation today, because we are, you know, sinful, but I never thought about that fact that there was even temptation then. You know, maybe God still wanted us to listen to him, and he wanted us to listen to him then. But temptation is too hard at times. It's like you said, what you ever seen a grove of beautiful red apples? You know, they're just they're just
Right.
It's beautiful, even when some of the green mixed in, and you know,
Yeah.
it would be, you know, hard to, and that's the worst thing that I've found that I could do to my kids, is tempt them by saying, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because it seems like then they want to think, wow,
They want to do it even more.
they're right.
Yeah. Well, and I think I was thinking, right, like Eve often, I don't even think like, you know, people like to use this text specifically to blame Eve, like, oh, she was the downfall of Adam, but like, you know, they were both going to do it. We know, like we all would have done it too, you know, but that it kind of reminded me, like she was the one that was like, oh yeah, let's go for it. Like, and it made me think of Luther's sin boldly, right? Like try to do your best, but it's okay if you mess up, because there's grace. And I think this was probably, you know, before there was the understanding of grace that we have through
but
Jesus.
That could be why God did it, is don't do it, so that we would have the fall from grace, So we would know to turn to him for salvation.
Yeah.
He set us up to fail.
Yeah.
So that we would know to go to him.
And then, so right after this, right, God is walking in the garden and he gives them clothes, right? He doesn't send them away with nothing, right? He's like, well, we've turned to this corner now. Let me help you deal with it.
Well, and that Satan was present in the garden. You know, we overlook, I mean, when we talk about the Garden of Eden being a perfect place, if it's a perfect place, why is Satan there? You know, well, what's Satan doing there in this so-called perfect place? And the other part of it is, and this is where it really relates to the gospel, is you know, Satan lies to Eve about the intent of God. Satan essentially tells Eve, that Adam and Eve, that God's intent is evil. God intends them to, he wants them to remain ignorant, and that this is, and that has evil intent, or whatever you want to say, towards them, by not letting them know the difference between good and evil. I mean, that's the lie that is here.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. I don't think the serpent lied. I think the serpent twisted the truth.
Well, isn't that a lie?
It was like,
Isn't that a lie?
well, it was a half truth.
Right, after you eat, you're gonna know the difference between good and evil.
Right.
And that was true, and you will not die. Well, they died in one way, but they didn't physically die.
Right.
So, and that's what so many people who want to subvert religion or tempt you away from God do. They tell you a partial truth and try to sway you, you know, with that, the temptation. And I think that's why.
And as my dad would say, you know, someone who tells you a half truth is telling you no truth at all.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's, you know, that's the reality of a half truth. It is. It adds to the deception.
And that's what tempters do.
Right.
And
Well, okay, so my study Bible note here is the serpent does not tell the truth either, but neither does God. God's withholding knowledge from the humans becomes the key point of temptation. Because because God told him not to do this thing, but he didn't tell them why.
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe God just wanted us to listen to him and trust him. And
Or that
he knows everything. He should have known we weren't going to listen.
I think and that's where this line, and it's interesting, Ray Austin talked about this when we were talking about the Lord's Prayer, and she said that ever since she was in confirmation, she has not been able to pray that petition of the Lord's Prayer that says, lead us not into temptation. It's like, for her, why would God lead us into temptation? And the more contemporary version, and a different, slightly, it just varies on the translation, says that that petition is worded, save us from the time of trial. And, you know, with what you're saying, Greta, that is essentially what God does for Adam and Eve.
Mhm.
They, you know, they have this trial in front of them. And just because they fail to do what God has instructed them to do, doesn't mean he isn't there for them, that he doesn't save them.
Mhm.
And
How do we know that the serpent is evil? Or where did we get the idea that the serpent was the devil? It doesn't ever say that.
well, it is that sense of they and they don't, in the Hebrew, they are not the serpent isn't seen, the snake, and which is the Hebrew word is just a common word for snake. It doesn't, you know, and so it isn't that the snake is evil, but that God, that Satan, Satan possessed the snake, Satan, and appeared in their form, and the word and the word they use is crafty, you know, he was,
Yeah.
you know, and the word it's interesting because the word that is used there for evil or for crafty is, it is one vowel off from the word for naked, the Hebrew word for naked.
Hmm.
And so, you know, that they appeared naked. And so you know, that again, that it's Satan who is possessing the snake. It isn't that the serpent is evil, or that the serpent always that the snake is evil. Is, you know, that Satan has taken possession, and in Satan's craftiness confronts Eve. I mean, and the amazing thing about it is, to me, is, you know, that most many people are terrified of snakes. I mean, and here Eve is talking to the snake as if they are, you know, just common friends.
If all the animals in the garden could speak.
Well, and yeah, that is the snake able to speak, or is this common in the garden that Adam and Eve would talk to all the animals in the garden and saw them as creatures they could converse with and communicate with? Phrases, yeah.
Should we move on to the psalm?
You bet.
Psalm 32. Happy are they whose transgressions are forgiven and whose sin is put away. Happy are they to whom the Lord imputes no guilt and in whose spirit there is no guile. While I held my tongue, my bones withered away because of my groaning all day long. For your hand was heavy upon me day and night. My moisture was dried up as in the heat of summer. Then I acknowledged my sin to you and did not conceal my guilt. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord. Then you forgave me the guilt of my sin. Therefore, all the faithful will make their prayers to you in time of trouble, when the great waters overflow. They shall not reach them. They shall not reach them. You are my hiding place. You preserve me from trouble. You surround me with shouts of deliverance. I will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go. I will guide you with my eye. Do not be like horse or mule, which have no understanding. You must be fitted with bit and bridle, or else they will not stay near you. Who must be fitted? Great are the tribulations of the wicked, but mercy embraces those who trust in the Lord. Be glad, you righteous, and rejoice in the Lord. Shout for joy, all who are true of heart.
This is interesting in that one of the, I don't know what you call it, in the Psalms, we'll often have the psalmist speaking, and then the psalmist gives voice to God's voice. I mean, in verses 8 and 9. Verses 8 and 9 are God speaking. The rest of the psalm is the psalmist. It can be confusing. Yeah.
Was, to me, this psalm rings very true, because if I do something that I know is wrong, it just eats at me until I confess it. And it's like God lifts that burden from me, and I can go on and do something stupid the next day too.
It's easy to do.
And I think, that verse 9 has always intrigued me. Be not like the horse or mule, that must be fitted with a bridle. That, and I think, that's more out in the story of, in Genesis, that is not God's nature. He is not wanting to.
He doesn't want to lead you along.
Right.
Yeah.
That
He wants to lead you by what he shows you, what he tells you, but he doesn't necessarily want to have. It's just wonderful that we have free will and we have control of our life. But in many ways, it'd be so much easier. Because I'm a stupid man.
God save me from
Well,
stupid
I think
man.
if you were on a leash, you wouldn't like it.
No.
You say it would be easier, but actually you would struggle a lot.
Yeah. That's, many times for the free will that he gives me, so that I wish I'd learned better, I guess I should say.
Well, I think you can't beat yourself up for being a human. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I learned a long time ago, is to not beat myself up for past sins, because God's already forgiven those. I ask him, and if I truly believe in God, then I've got to let those go and start today and try and be a better person, but not dwell on, you know, the stupid things I've done in the past.
Mhm.
Because if I do that, I'm not trusting God. I'm not believing that he forgave those sins.
You know, I think, you know, in verse 7 and verse 10, both, talk about, I mean, verse 7 says, you surround me with shouts of deliverance. And then steadfast love surrounds the one who trusts the Lord. You know, when you think of that in terms of how have you experienced that kind of deliverance? That you know, preserves you from trouble and delivers you. And what I see in that is God delivering us into things we could not even imagine. And how God does that in a whole variety of ways. I think I told you guys, you know, my sense of my calling into ministry, and part of that in doing the work, the kind of ministry I spent most of my career doing is you know, was more of a specialized ministry, but it wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been this consulting psychiatrist from the old ALC in my life that said, you know, when I told him my dreams and all my plans and what I was wanting to do, he just looked at me and said, "You're not ready." Yeah.
Okay.
And then he went on to explain, you know, what he had been in general practice for 9 years before he went into psychiatry, before he did his psychiatric residency. And he said, you know, those were some of the best years of my career, my life. And he said, and then he said, you know, you need to go back and need to learn what it is to love the people there. And he said, more importantly, you need to learn how to let them love you. And talk about deliverance. You know, I changed that looking at from that, you know, is when I went back in, you know, for those next 3.5 years, I faced some really tough deaths, some things that were very difficult, but through it all, you know, the congregation just continued to love me, and you know, and delivered me from my own sense of depression, my own you know, like there's something more I should be doing. They were there saying, no, you're doing what you need to do for us. And so they were a real voice of deliverance. You know, it's sometimes we need to be told, yeah, you're good, you are good enough, you are doing enough. Because our ego gets in the way, and I think if Satan's able to use a snake, he's perfectly capable of using our ego and say, no, you're not good enough, you're not there's more you should be doing, and all this stuff, instead of resting in in God's love and the love of the people around us.
Yeah, I think, yeah, the first half of verse 10, many are the torments of the wicked. I don't think that means God is tormenting the wicked.
No,
I think that means they're tormenting themselves,
right,
right?
right.
And, but if you trust in the Lord, if you trust in grace and God's love, you can rest in that, like that gives hope,
Mhm.
right? To
Yep.
end the torment. Yeah, it's not God punishing the wicked, it's, you know, not having hope is the punishment, I think.
And when you hear about what's going on with, they say the statistics are now that it is people over 55 who now are, after the pandemic, throughout the pandemic and after the pandemic, are most prone to behavioral health issues, whether it's addictions, depression, anxiety. It is, they are the ones who are experiencing that, and a lot of them, for a lot of them, it was a very, very lonely time. We were just, especially if you were living in a care center and you were locked in your room, but you were kept in your room. You weren't allowed to, you weren't even allowed to go out in the hallway. You didn't have any contact, people would come and deliver your food to you, but you didn't have contact with them. And so loneliness can breed a lot of that. And what the wonderful promise here is, yeah, God is not going to leave us alone. God will not leave us alone. So, how about Romans?
Okay, I'll read Romans. Romans, the 5th chapter, verses 12 through 19. Just as sin came into the world through one man, and death came through sin. And so death spread to all because all have sinned. Sin was indeed in the world before the law, but sin is not reckoned when there is no law. Yet death exercised dominion from Adam to Moses, even over those whose sins were not like the transgression of Adam, who is a type of the one who was to come. But the free gift is not like the trespass. For if the many died through the one man's trespass, much more surely have the grace of God and the free gift in the grace of the one man, Jesus Christ, abounded for the many. And the free gift is not like the effect of the one man's sin. For the judgment following one trespass brought condemnation, but the free gift following many trespasses brings justification. If because of the one man's trespass, death exercised dominion through that one, much more surely with those who receive the abundance of grace and the free gift of righteousness, exercise dominion in the life through the one man, Jesus Christ. Therefore, just as one man's trespass led to condemnation for all, so one man's act of righteousness leads to justification and life for all. For just as by the one man's disobedience, the many were made sinners, so by the one man's obedience, the many will be made righteous.
Wow.
First of all, I disagree with the first sentence. As sin came into the world through one man. No. It was Eve. It was a woman. We're not the one that ate the apple. She gave it to us.
I knew somebody was gonna bring that up eventually.
But it does tie into talking of the one man's sin and the one man who saves us. So,
I love the book of Romans. It gives me so much hope. But in this passage, why can't he just say? Because it came through Adam, and Adam led us this way, and and Jesus Christ gave us this, and, you know. He can use one man did bad and another man did good,
Excuse me.
then name them all the time.
Yeah.
He's so much easier to read.
Yeah, I just don't feel like it's. I don't know. Like the one man, the guy named Adam, like is it like I feel like Adam is humanity.
Yeah.
Like it's not the one man. Like
Well,
any of us are Adam, I think. Because Adam just means man.
No, it's not my fault. Adam caused it.
Yeah, it's that original sin, man.
well, and I think, and I don't know. I've not studied the linguistics of Romans enough to know because I know, I mean, Adam is the word for man in Hebrew. So it wasn't the way we think of it, identifying one person.
Yeah.
It is really relating it to humankind, all humans and all men. And so how that, and you know, Paul was writing in Greek. And you know, how that translates, but I think that's where, yeah, that may be why he uses the one man.
Yeah. I have a little note that, as the first human being, Adam stands at the beginning of the human family, and in his sin, all of humanity is implicated. Jesus also stands at the beginning of a new humanity, but without the sin that corrupted humanity after Adam. So thinking of like, I think that's why they're focusing on the one man thing, like the father of humanity, but Jesus restarted the lineage without sin and with grace. So leaning into that rather than blaming Adam for the world's woes.
See, I like Roman because there's a couple of verses in here that I really like. And this one is from chapter 8. And it's verse 31. If God is on our side, who can ever be against us? I like that one. And then I also like verse 12. Let's see, verse 12. Don't, then it's work happily together. Don't try to act big. Don't try to get into the good graces of important people, but enjoy the company of ordinary folks, and don't think you have to know it all.
Are you talking about me?
No.
There's so many verses underlined in Romans that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I think this trumps 12 through 19 is just really hopeful, right? Like, we are in a sinful world, like living in this like sort of state of sin, right? But God's grace is bigger. And no matter what happens, Jesus is there.
Yeah, I think also to keep in mind that Paul is not speaking about salvation as something at the end of time or the end of, he's talking about today, now. How do we experience salvation now? I mean, because the verses before that, which is, we read parts of them through at every baptism that we do. And that, you know, there are the. um, And it says, hope does not put us to shame, because hoping God, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. And you know, and then also in verse 11 that it says, more than being saved by his life, we also rejoice in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now, today, this moment, received reconciliation. So it isn't something that happens at the end of time. It is about now, about today.
Yeah, I've always liked verse 6, like while we were still weak. Not when we got it together, but while we were still in the midst, Christ died for us.
Well, and the other piece in that verse is at the right time.
Yep.
You know, at God's time.
Mhm.
You have to look at.
Yeah. Christ didn't wait until we were all pure and lovely to die for us. He-
Yeah,
He'd have had a long week.
It happened.
Yeah.
I think he knew that, so.
Just think that the hope that Christ gave us all, knowing that we couldn't do anything on our own, but with him and because of him, we do have the opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
We can read Matthew.
Well, I can read that. Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written. For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." And Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. You know, it's easier to read these things in the Bible than it is here this way. To me, it is easier to read. But anyhow.
You know, and it's interesting. You know, when you look at the temptations, that all these temptations are they take on different, come at Jesus from different ways. It's first just the physical, and how many just through your physical body, and how many people for whom illness and just You know, that it just takes away, zaps their spirituality. My one son-in-law's father is going through that. He's having a heck of a time with he's had heart problems, and then he's fought through 2 battles where he has gone where he's gone septic, where he's had sepsis, not once but twice. And there's articles about how much that takes when you have that kind of infection, how much it takes out of you. And now he's fighting, it's just been crazy. I talked to his wife this last weekend when we were in Eastern Iowa, and she said, yeah, it's just, he can gain 7 pounds of water weight in one day, and then he will lose it in one day. And that just is terrible on the body. I mean, what that puts the body through. And how great the temptation is to give up, hope, and because the feeling that our body has betrayed us. And then, the second one of, spiritually, that we, that again, God will, keep us from experiencing any kind of harm, any misfortune in this world. And how often do we hear that? Where people just give up on God, because of the misfortune they've experienced.
Yeah, we had a confirmation lesson on this year. The temptations of Jesus, but the 3 things, one is hunger. He's tested on hunger and his bodily needs. He's tested on power, I will give you the world to rule. And then I guess, the third one is bodily harm. But yeah, they're very human temptation. Testing Jesus' humanity.
Is that why Lent was invented, so that we would go through some of those old temptations of our own during that time? Speaking of Lent, that's today, right?
Mhm.
The service is at 6 tonight, noon and 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
Noon and 6 for Ash Wednesday services. And that. And so Lent begins, the first Sunday in Lent begins with this text of reminding us how we are all tempted in different ways. Whether it's the physical or the social aspect, spiritual, in community, where that we are, going to have it all. One way of putting it, and when we don't, somehow, God's punishing us. Or that, this, to me, and I don't know if it's the biggest lie, it's a lie that always, it's like, where did Satan get the idea that he, that somehow he created and controls the world, that he has power over all the world? How, that, when you talk about Satan being the father of lies, and that lies primarily are self-deception. You know, then it makes sense to me. I mean, that's Satan over and over again. He just simply lives in that kind of self-deception, that somehow he is more of that.
I mean, how could you go wrong? Jesus was led up by the Spirit. I've got the Spirit of God with me. And it's taking me to the devil. What do I got to fear? I've got somebody, behind me. Somebody's got my six. So go ahead, tempt me all you want, because somebody's got my back.
Yeah, well, it's like all the things that the devil is offering to us are things like Jesus already has.
Right.
Mhm.
But and I feel like it's also a good like sort of demonstration of how Jesus is a new type of leader, a new type of king. He's like, I could do that, but I'm not going to. So it's not saying he doesn't have the power because he's resisting the temptation. He's saying that he does have the power, but he has the power to resist temptation, which no one else does.
Right.
Well,
He could go without food forever and still exist, but the man part of Jesus
Yeah,
was
fully man
tempted.
and fully God at
Right.
the same time. Yeah.
I mean, you would think Jesus would know what's in store for him on the cross. And if he would take the temptation here from the devil when he was on the cross, truly suffering for us, would he not then take the easy out, the wrong out? He's establishing that he can do the right thing and not
Mhm.
invoke something holy for himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of thing when he's on the cross and the criminal next to him says, well, if you're really God, then you could save us all. And like, yeah, he could, but he's not going to. Like, he could jump off this cliff and survive, but he's not going to. He's going to be a human and have human weaknesses.
Yeah, he wasn't just going to save just the 3 people there.
Right.
He was gonna save the world by going through and with suffering and dying,
Mhm.
and then showing us all that he truly was God with his resurrection.
This is going to sound stupid. I'm enjoying our conversations because I've not really read the Bible a lot, but yet, to see in context, man cannot live, or one does not live by bread alone. There's so many different things that you know and hear, but to hear them all together or in a different context is good for me. And thank you.
You bet.
The one thing that I'm learning in these studies, I expect Pastor to know a lot more than I do, but I never expected this young lady to know more than I do, and I'm impressed with your knowledge and your insight.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Well, and again, that. And I appreciate your comments, Dean, because, it isn't. As one of my professors once said to me, it isn't about what you know and what you believe as much as it is about whom can you trust to help you see what life is about, and that as a group we have we can see that more clearly, and I learned from each of you also. I love this group because it's, you know, just to be able to talk about what this means for us. To realize it's for all of us, not just me. It's for the whole community. And I think that's getting back to Paul. I think in reading Romans, if you read that as only applying to me,
Yeah,
then I'm in trouble. But when I realize this is Paul speaking to the whole of mankind, actually, the whole of humankind, and speaking to the whole community, not just me, you know, and it's like, whoa. This is it's real.
I'm glad to be here discerning with you all. I think that's how we are supposed to approach the text is. Not in isolation.
get insight from everybody. So, but
Yeah, but I think you two have special Bibles that have like,
We do.
Mhm.
the user's
It has a
guide
whole- it
or the
has-
translation
It
version.
has a whole lot of stuff in it that, you know, I'm not even sure I understand, but that's okay. You help me understand.
Yeah, but when it tells you that this word is one syllable or one character away from another and.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
if mine's that.
You got some extra
Mine's
stuff in
the Lutheran Study Bible though. This one's pretty widespread. If you're looking
we
for
can
one.
all buy those and have that insight. Yeah. You just have to spend time reading.
I actually found this at my parents' house at Thanksgiving.
Uh,
It was my grandpa's.
Your grandpa's in need.
Yeah, there's not much marked in this one. He had several, so my grandpa was a Lutheran pastor.
Oh,
So when this came out in like, I don't know, 2010 or something, he was really excited and bought a bunch of them. So I don't know that this was his like daily use one, but it's one that was on his shelf that they didn't get rid of when he died. So. Well, and like, so the one that Pastor Chris uses is the Harper Collins Study Bible. I also found a Harper Study Bible that was my great grandpa's in the 60s. So it's like, I was like, oh, now I have a Harper Collins Bible. No, it has like a quarter of the things that Pastor Chris's Bible has, because it's the version from 1964, not the version from,
yeah.
2014.
Things change.
Should we close? There.
Our
Father, we have hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily. And forgive us our trespasses. As we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
How is Walter? Is it Walter?
It's just great.
Good. Is he out of the ICU?
He has been home for 2 days.